So without further ado, I will introduce you to our first speaker. Her name is Bayowa. She's a senior project engineer manager at Paul Corporation. She has a chemical engineering background and has worked as a project engineer in various companies. Bayowa has comprehensive knowledge and understanding of process designs and development. Hi, Bayowa. If you can please unmute yourself.
Hey everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm very happy to be on this panel and to share my experience and connect with your audience. It's definitely a great initiative, especially having a community of Black women engineering, as you've mentioned before. But yes, what I really want to get across to people is that you always have the ability to upskill, reposition yourself as well, and stay relevant in this changing environment. So the topic that's been posed is basically positioning yourself for engineering jobs of the future. So it's really good to see what has been posted with regards to future jobs. I made a note of the two top, which was sustainability and technology. So on that note, I'd like to say we are in the digital age, and data is the new oil, especially at the time when we're facing political, economical, social, environmental, and technological changes, which is disrupting business models. Because of that, this is forcing industries to come up with solutions quicker than ever before. And as a result, they're seeking insights from engineers. So engineers like us and engineers of the future as well. So engineers remain at the very front line, helping organizations from various industries. So this can be from civil to chemical. They basically looking to us to solve these problems. So meaning engineers have to be equipped with multiple skills, and they have to have the ability to work effectively in an agile environment. So what is the future looking like in the future for engineers? What we are seeing is a shift in the renewable energy. More industries are moving to greener energy. So if we like to talk about just in general, just even now, our gas suppliers and the electricity providers, you see a lot of options now for greener energy. So definitely, in the future, there is definitely a shift towards sustainability, greener energies. I would also like to mention biotechnology as well. So technology is going to be key, automated processes as well. So we're looking at wind turbines, we're looking at solar panels as well. So this gives engineers a chance to position themselves by looking at the future in what they can do. So it's good for engineers just to tap into this. One of the main areas that we can position ourselves is definitely our soft skills. So with engineers, we have so much knowledge. And like working in industry, especially in my current role right now, one of the greatest skills is our soft skills in order to be able to explain complex problems in a simplified, because we're working with diverse range of people. So an example, for example, I'm working on a project. It's not just engineers that I'm working with marketing. I'm working with various different types. So it is good to have that soft skills as an engineer as well in order to position yourself for the future. So that is where we see the future going into. So we're shifting away from the traditional. Yes, we're still needing people in the oil and gas industries, especially created from fossil fuels. I would like to also mention automation as well. There is a lot of shortages of software engineers as well. So if that is something that you're looking into, that could potentially be somewhere that you might look into, maybe upskilling, or you're looking at changing different industries. That's something that you can also look into as well. So yes, that is that on my side in terms of summary. If anyone has any question, yeah, feel free.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Bayowa. And I definitely agree with everything you said. I mean, being an engineer is a lot more than your technical skills. A lot of your job is working with people, and not everybody that you will be working with or currently working with are engineers. So positioning yourself for jobs in the future by upskilling your soft skills as well as your technical skills is definitely something that I think people should definitely look into doing. So thank you so much for that, Bayowa.
Yeah, I just would like to add as well, because I know there might be some maybe people as a graduate engineers as well. So just the typical, I think, just like everyone has as an engineers, being able to, the ability to be innovative is of course key. The ability to communicate effectively, work as a team. So just the standard skills that everyone has as well. But in case we have, I think we have some graduate engineers as well on. So that's something also not to lose sight of as an engineer for the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will be introducing our next speaker. Our next speaker is Ruth. Ruth Tatanga, and Ruth is a mechanical design engineer at BWEng Group. Hi, Ruth.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. Like Abby said, I'm a mechanical design engineer for BWEng Group. So I design energy systems for different type of buildings. And I also created my limited company, which is Ipsam Consulting Group. And I mainly use it for projects that are closer to my heart, especially focused on sustainability and energy savings. Can I request control for this one?
Not at the moment, because you can only have one host, but just let me know when you'd like me to move on to the next slide.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. Thank you so much. So I work in construction industry, and it mainly required a lot of how will I say, adapt. It requires us to adapt especially during this lockdown. We had to put in a lot of resilience and creativity in the way we work, especially because like in construction industry, it's mainly about daily contact and conversation that you have to do with, that you have to take and have with people in order to remain productive. Abby, could you move to the next slide? Yes. So as a mechanical engineer, my role as a mechanical project engineer, my role is mainly gathering building data in order to design the suitable system and make the building function in accordance to his purpose. So the current strategy of work have requested from us like using new tools, new ways, and probably changing the way we thought initially we will work. So we had to transition, for example, to paperless strategy of work because not everyone has like printer at home, and it's not like sustainable. It's not sustainable. We had to stay more connected and be careful about the way we share the information or we keep the information, because when we are isolated, it comes naturally not mindful that like you work in a team. So it was very challenging during this season. We had to learn to evolve from what we knew from what we knew and what we know now in this season. That makes sense. So looking back 2 months ago, when the lockdown started, things have clearly evolved in a good way, thankfully. And we can also see that we are not quite there yet. So we changed from instant contact to appreciating delays and working in team while being isolated. Now that we are thinking about going back to offices, it's still quite uncertain what will be our new normal, especially in my field. And even though there is so much from this season that we've learned from, especially in our less sustainable behavior, we still have like a long way to go to start working back properly, if I may say, in construction industry. Abby, could you move to the next, please? Thank you. So regarding my role as engineering and sustainability, I'm more confident on how this role will fare into the future, because like the work method has fluidly migrated from the site assessment to remote analysis. So I totally agree with Bawa, what she said initially, which is the future is remote, automated, and sustainability. And for example, when I used to assess energy savings in the building, I used to go on site, install sensors, move them around to make sure that I get the best information. Today, most energy consuming systems or equipment have sensors, which makes our lives a bit easier and can be accessed remotely. So I really believe that this field and this role is one of the most strategic for the next working era we'll step into. Well, actually, we were able to succeed into delivering some projects during this season, like with no issues. So I'm really confident in the sustainability field. Even though I enjoy these two roles, I believe as we still require buildings and energy use and how do you say, and connect with people, I really think that we are still able to adapt and integrate more sustainable concepts into the future and find new ways to assess energy savings and control how we used our buildings. Construction industry today is mostly white, male, gender dominant. It struggles to attract and retain diverse profiles as much as we see in other industries like finance and tech. I believe representation matters a lot. Someone who looks like me that I could relate to is the challenge I face every day at work. Being the only female engineer, the only Black woman, it's something that really could become heavy in certain environments, especially in construction. And construction industry is one of them. This is why I think diversity and inclusion and advocating for more profiles like ours is important. So I think to get there, it takes, I think the construction industry is working towards it, but it still takes young women, young men like us, like the one that are connecting today, to actually position themselves for us working in the industry to actually see you. It starts by taking a leap. putting yourself forward, whether you just got out of uni or already in the industry or trying to change your career paths towards constructions. It requires to be proactive, as even if it's challenging, and even if it's challenging to get in, it's almost as challenging to stay in, but it's so worth it, so worth it. I'll also recommend to learn to build your network. It's important to talk to the right people, to learn how to navigate. It's important to find your group that looks like you, to grow professionally and personally. The groups that correspond to where you are heading to. Also, I believe that it's important to have mentors. Someone who will tell you how you can work and navigate to get where you are heading. Someone will help you to respond to situations that you'll be confronted at work, like, I don't know, be gaslighted or microaggressions. That happens. Don't be taken by surprise. Really seek for a mentor, seek for guidance. And lastly, I'll say you need a plan to get where you want to go. So I'll tell a story about a man in a consultancy that I used to work in. From the moment he was hired, he printed like the job profile of the next senior position. He set it by his computer, and he worked every day to nail every requirement on that list. So basically, he sent a strong message to the partners, to the management team, to show I want it and I know where I want to go. And after each promotion, he was doing exactly the same thing. And that's how he moved very fastly in his career. But I feel like it's tiring, right? You always hear these stories about men, about how they do amazing success stories. Well, I think there is a lot to learn from them. There is a lot to learn from how men, and especially white male, position themselves at work, because I really feel like we are our hardest critics, and sometimes we struggle to show how hungry we are about what we want. And I believe it's not being aggressive, it's being determinate. And if it's good for a man, it's certainly good for me. So I'll say, don't be ashamed or shy for wanting it, and know what is required to get where you are aiming to be. No one gets there by accident. And last but not the least, Abby is the next one, is the previous one, but yes, balance. Last but not the least is balance. So I really believe in assessing, organize, and nurture. So I won't tell you in this season how many men and women had nervous breakdown working on the project, just because we are working crazy hours, understaffed, to get the projects out. So it's really, really, really important to organize your life, not around your work, but around your priorities, and learn how to take time to nurture yourself, because, well, nobody will do it for you. And I hope I was able to get you interested in my line of work. And thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ruth. I think that was really, really good and very insightful. And one of the main things that I particularly took away from that is the fact that engineering jobs of the future, you need to be able to adapt to the changing environment, because it's
Definitely.
there's changes is constant. So that's definitely one thing that I think is amazing, from what you've also said, and the fact that the future is in sustainability. because it is. I mean, you need to look after the environment and the world to be able to thrive in it. So being able to find yourself in an area where you can improve on your knowledge on sustainability regarding, renewable energies, or in your case in construction, is definitely something that will put you in a good stead for the future. So thank you so much for that, Ruth. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So the next speaker that we have today is Debbie Thornley. Debbie is a R&D product development manager and agile R&D lead at Panellists International. Debbie has over 10 years of industry experience working in various roles within consumer goods and biochemical industry. Debbie is also a chartered chemical engineer with the Institution of Chemical Engineers. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Abby, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm assuming everyone else can hear me. Hi, everyone. So I'm Debbie Thornley, and firstly, I must commend Abby and the team for setting this up. I think it's a fantastic initiative, and thank you for inviting me and having me on the panel. I will be, glad to share my thinking behind, what engineering jobs of the future look like, and through my eyes. But just to give you a bit of background to myself, so I'm a chemical engineer by training. I studied chemical engineering, and I remember when being in Aston, and Aston University is a small university compared to some of the more sizable universities. And I remember my first year of university being one of 3 females in the class, and over time this evolved. There were more females in the class, and even upon graduating and moving into the working environment, I started to see a shift into this appreciation of diversity through gender and ethnicity as well. So it's glad to have lived, and to be living through the era of change in that regard. After I completed my degree, I moved into the biofuel industry, and that's where I actually started my professional career. And I was a project engineer, mainly focused in biodiesel as the main fuel that I was working with. And I realized that I at that time that I had 2 options, really, to stay really technical in this technical field and to stay within the biofuels industry, or to kind of branch out. And I took a leap of faith. I branched out into the FMCG industry, and I joined what was Cadbury at the time, Cadbury chocolate, as a chocolate brand, as a process engineer in manufacturing, and then eventually moved into R&D and worked my way through different roles in research and development. So currently I manage a team of product developers and engineers as well. Just bear with me 1 second, please. I just need to clear. Yeah, sorry, just a bit of background noise. Right, okay. Cool. So, I lead a team of R&D product developers and process engineers as well. And we mainly look after innovation projects, so new product development. So within the chocolate industry still. So a lot of the Cadbury products you see today on the market, a number of those are carefully nurtured and carefully taken through, our life cycle by myself and my team. So MPDs, renovation, line extensions, And basically I cover the UK and Ireland, and also some other parts of Europe as well, such as the Nordics. So that's a bit about me. I think, you know, when I think about jobs of the future, I kind of think, I can't help but think about, again, the evolution of different industries, especially the ones I've been exposed to. So when I look at the FMCG industry, I class myself fortunate working for Mondelez. Most people don't know Mondelez as a company. Mondelez is more popular within, the brands are more popular than the company itself. So, you know, we talk about Oreo, we talk about Cadbury and so on. And to work in a multinational industry, a lot of the benefit of multinational industry sometimes is that they move at I would say, a faster pace when it comes to adopting and adapting to new ways of working and new approaches. So I've had the benefit to, I would say, be in the front line of some of this, these kind of and to pioneer some of these systems, ways of working, and so on and so forth. When I look at the jobs of the future, I think one thing to kind of really detail is, and I think Bayo made mention of it, and Ruth as well, is that it is very, very unlikely that most engineering companies will succeed going forward without a true injection and appreciation of diversity and inclusivity in the workforce. Without that, it really is, it will, you know, quickly become a stagnant organization. So I think diversity and inclusion is something that's at the forefront of most forward-thinking companies' minds. Different companies have different ways of kind of, you know, executing and ensuring that the trends are going in the right direction. I think one of the, you know, when it comes to FMCGs and in relation to engineering jobs of the future, one thing is clear, that startup companies seem to be popping up left, right, and center, mainly related to healthy eating and mainly related to having a true understanding of consumers' wants and needs. And I think this is one thing to really stress, that jobs of the future, engineering jobs of the future, and I think all jobs of the future, have to be centered around consumer and customer wants and needs, because without that, it's really, you know, quite a pointless venture. And you know, I've had the privilege, I will call it, to be involved in some projects that the consumer or customer were not put at the heart. And you know, I've seen those you know, new products not perform well on the market. I've seen unhappy customers. I've dealt with unhappy customers. Startups have nurtured the way to put consumers at the heart, understand, meet consumer needs. And what they've also really kind of nurtured as well, startups, is the ability to work in an agile way. So one of the extensions of my current role is I act as an agile manager, and I'm agile trained from a methodology perspective, and I've run a number of agile projects. And agility is absolutely key, especially in this VUCA world, this volatile, uncertain world that we live in today, to be able to pivot, to be able to, you know, change rapidly, adapt rapidly, to be able to work efficiently, to be able to focus, and to be able to apply what is kind of an industry terminology called minimum viable principle. It needs to, you know, perfection is no longer in vogue. It's minimum viable principle. Is it meeting the needs of the customer and consumers? Is it safe? If your key core needs are being met, then that product is more or less ready to go. This is and for those who don't know about Agile, Agile is a methodology that stemmed in the IT industry. And, you know, the IT industry is known for moving quickly, and that's why you have version 300 of, you know, certain IT software, because they're constantly adapting, but what they're doing is they're putting things out there as they're adapting. Once it reaches minimum viable principle, it's satisfying the needs and so on, it's going out there. So an understanding of agility and being able to actually be agile, I think is something that most jobs of the future in engineering would appreciate. Now, I think it's clear to say, and again, you know, echoing what BWEng and Ruth have said, in that technical skills and know-how is not the be-all and end-all. And I think, you know, there are individuals that are, you know, 100% technical at heart, and that's where they want to focus on. And I think that's fine, but it's a case of having an appreciation of the other functions and the other elements of what makes a business work. And if you go into your jobs with just the need to be this technical expert, you will encounter a ceiling most likely. So I think one thing I realized, and one of the advices I was given very early on in my career, is to really build on kind of like a good foundation on other functions, especially building acumen from a business, financial and economic perspective. And what it happens is you actually begin to have various perspectives as opposed to this just one technical perspective. I think, you know, there was mention already of soft skills, so I'm not going to go into that. Soft skills is super important, and I think, you know, it would always be something that would be in, you know, jobs of the future and beyond. I think it's more appreciated even now than perhaps in my day at the start of my career early on. And I think, you know, one thing to perhaps just finish with is flexibility. I think, you know, this COVID situation we're facing today is perhaps I would say it's forced a lot of companies, a lot of businesses and organizations to allow and trust their employees to be flexible, of course, to ensure business continuity. And I think what jobs of the future would look like going forward is that there will be more flexibility available to us. And I think that would make for quite the more flexibility you can demonstrate and show as an individual yourself will put you in the right positions and in the right roles as well. So flexibility, like being able to work remotely, being able to travel, being able to relocate, being able to work in different functions, being able to hold conversations amongst technical peers and also commercial peers. Those kind of flexibility, that kind of flexibility, I think will be much more, and I won't even go say appreciated or valued, but it would be much more required going forward in technical engineering functions than they are today.
Awesome.
And
thank you so much.
I'll finish with that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Debbie. And okay, I'll just quickly go on to the next speaker for today. Next speaker is, our last speaker is Myrtle Dawes, and she's a director in the at the Oil and Gas Technology Center. Myrtle has over 25 years experience working in the energy sector. And an interesting fact about Myrtle is that Myrtle was the first Black female to work offshore in the North Sea in the UK. So I think that's amazing. Hi, Myrtle.
So hello guys, and thank you for the speakers before me. I'm going to speak really, really quickly so we can, so you guys can ask some questions. So the first thing is, unfortunately, next year is the first year there's a lot of feedback. Can you just go on mute if you do? I have to say it's been a fantastic experience. But what I'd like to say to all of you is it's never been a better time to be an engineer. So if you could just click to the next, yeah. So I'm going to give you 3 bits of advice about how to keep yourself current and how to make sure you land yourself in the right place. So click again, I'm going to talk about the key metrics. So first of all, we're all working in a business. We've got £100 billion in terms of GVA. So that's about the value being created by the industry that we work in, just from an engineering perspective. And in terms of the R&D, which is one of the things you can do, we are spending 2.4% of the GDP, that's the target, on R&D. And our GDP is $2.74 trillion. So that just means lots and lots of opportunities. Then if you look at the infrastructure that we're going to put down over the next few years till 2028, we're talking about 600 billion. So more than enough. But if that didn't make it great, because of energy transition to a better future by 2050, we're aiming to spend an additional 2% of our GDP on energy transition. And on top of that, we're talking about a 14% of all the engineering and construction workforce will be retiring within the next 6 years. So more than enough opportunity, just about time on that. You can go to the next one, please. So the 4 areas that I'd like to say I think are quite important for you to look at. So the first one is, if you look at the government's industrial strategy, the first thing is competition for skills. So you should consider yourself to be a talent. There is, if you look at what's happening with the infrastructure, energy transition, COVID, Brexit, more than enough opportunity will easily overcome the things such as the contraction in the overall GDP due to COVID and the issues around overseas competition, if we're innovative enough. I think the second thing is really to look at what are the trends. The trends that we've got at the moment, again, keep yourself informed, they're all out there. Where the government's putting its money, it's putting its money in artificial intelligence and data. So that's if you want to go, and we're talking about quantum technologies, we're talking about next generation services, including the service industry, and what was mentioned in terms of the customer, and that's the resilience of the future. It's also automation and appliances, so we're talking about manufacturing there and healthy energy. Probably the 2 most key to us here about the future of mobility. We're talking about, we can sort of back to the challenge, the push changes from using oil petrol cars to using batteries. We talk about the robotics available to us. About all of these things done by people like the National Composite Centre, about the materials, even potentially using different materials to conduct electricity. We're talking about huge opportunities here if we're innovative. And then I'd like to say that clean growth is quite important. This is a transition. The energy revolution is absolutely massive. No matter where you are, it will affect you. We are going to rebuild our complete infrastructure over the next 30 years. And there are other infrastructure to build, whether it be smart motorways, whether that be the water industry, just a lot, or whether it be our 5G network, just intensive activity. So when I look at that, I don't think that there's any reason that you shouldn't be able to get a job, because most of the people who are here have got the intelligence, have probably got the qualifications or are en route to that, so you should get that. So what might affect you? So the demographics are changing. So like apprentices, which used to be seen as a lower grade, now you can go to some of the energy companies and become one of their nuclear physicists by doing an apprenticeship. That never used to be. So I think that the graduates in place as well. But probably what was mentioned as well is that the movement between sectors, you have to have flexibility. I've moved sectors a few times, and it doesn't hurt you. In fact, it really makes you a much more rounded person because you see problems from a different perspective. Then I think the last thing on this, I think, is about the competent workforce, and I'm talking about 4.0, we've heard about 4.0, and what does this really mean? It means that we need to have some element of self-management, social intelligence and innovation. And in fact, what I think if I was to describe this to you, what it means is that you will need to have the capacity to focus on the challenge, to allow creativity and collaboration to produce innovative solutions, which you will then have to use your initiative and lead to get delivered. That is the whole purpose of what we do. And these skills, which are what we're calling meta skills, are really the time higher order skills that create adaptive learners and promote success, whatever the context. The last one, please, keep informed. So what I'd like to say is, I only found this out really recently. You can always know where the government always has it on their website. And there's a lot of publications out there that tell you what's coming up so you can position yourself really well. And that's across all the industries. So really keep yourself informed. And then if you click the last one for me. And then perhaps the last thing I wanted to say to you is that we really need to understand the regional focus of work in the UK. So, you know, when you look at some of the things that we've got here, you can be looking up at Scotland, where we've got oil and gas, and actually at the very north of Scotland, where we've got some of the best wind resources in the UK, so you know that there will be there. You can then be looking at the north of England. We've got lots of refining in that area. We've got petrochemicals at Teesside. I think you can then look across the UK, nuclear is across the UK. And then I think you can look at the other areas in the south of England, for example, again, refining, but also a huge corridor of engineering, design and feed work going on in that area. So again, that's where you live and what your aspirations are. Well, I have to say that COVID has changed that up a bit, because I've been working from home now for the last 3 months now, because I actually started a bit earlier, and I found it to be seamless, and that was someone who did work. So these are my tips for you. Again, remember that it's a great time to be an engineer. Make sure that you look beyond your current skills and make sure you look at the trends and that you're in the right place. And one of probably the most important things to do is to remember that no matter what your skills at the moment, all of the skills that you have to be underpinned by a lot of competence. So this is a tool that you have to know how to exploit really effectively in order to do your job in the future. So that's me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Myrtle. And I think that was really, really, really insightful. And it's great to see that there's all these opportunities available for people that are currently working in the industry, and most definitely for students that are currently studying engineering and would like to go into work in the industry. So that's great. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the end of the panel discussion. We are quite short on time, but I think we might have a few minutes to answer 1 or 2 questions. Tolu, is there any specific questions maybe in the group chat? Yeah.
Yes, so we had lots of questions in the group chat, which is evidence that, you know, the audience found all the speakers engaging and insightful. So thank you once again to all the speakers. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get through all the questions, but I'll just jump straight into it. So I'm just going to read out the question, and I'll pick one of the guest speakers to answer the question. So there's a question about how do you go about being authentic in the workplace, and how can you increase your confidence? I'm going to direct this question to Debbie. Debbie, can you shed some light on that, please?
I think I missed the latter half of the question. Can you just repeat that, please?
How do you go about being authentic, and how can you increase your confidence in the workplace?
So I think When I think of authenticity, I think about being true to yourself. I think you know, as early on in one's career and as a young engineer, for some folks, the ones that are really lucky and have it all put together, they know exactly what they want. They know their core values and their core beliefs, and they know how to navigate their way through the industry. Now, for most folks, even like myself, this didn't just come naturally. I think authenticity builds with time. You begin to learn more about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses. I think at the core of that are your values and your beliefs. And when I think about authenticity, it's kind of all these elements combined together. It's about not establishing the core early on, so your strengths, so your values and your beliefs early on, and then it's about learning about your strengths and your weaknesses, building on your weaknesses as well. It's about identifying, it's about self-reflecting as well. I think that helps. Perhaps the latter part of the question where you mentioned how do you build your confidence. I think it's important to do a lot of self-reflection over time. I mean, personally, what I do is so at the end of the year, I have kind of my end of year review, as most people do have in most organizations. And at that period, I reach out to my cross-functional peers. I reach out to some senior leaders I've worked with in the organization, and I ask for open and honest feedback. And that could be verbal, and that could be written feedback. And with that, I sit down and I reflect on my year as well. With time, you build on your ability to, on your perception, on your ability to see yourself and what you're doing right and what you're not, perhaps you could do better, and so on. I think that's very important to do, not just at the end of the year. So I do that at the end of the year, I do it at the middle of the year, and at the beginning of the year, I put together a development plan. I go, okay, what do I need to build on this year? And I look back and I also look forward. And I follow values, beliefs, and then understanding your strengths and weaknesses and building on that. And I think when it comes to confidence, I think you build it over time. Get the right mentors in place. So you don't need only one mentor. You can have more than one mentor. Doesn't just need to be a female. It could be a man as well. It could be someone outside of the industry. The more diverse your mentors are, the more perspectives you get.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Authenticity, self-reflection for the person who asked that question, and mentorship. I've got another question here. How easy is it, I hope everyone can hear me, how easy is it for a Black female to move up in an organization? I'm going to direct this question to Myrtle. How easy is it for a Black female engineer to move up in an organization?
So I'd say you can definitely move up, but you have to be pretty good because they're skeptics. And what I would suggest is, I know a lot of emphasis is put on leaders these days, but what I found is that if your peers respect you, then they will have you as their manager, and that's really important. And for me, having a very good peer network, and I tried hard to get that, and then having them respect me as an engineer really built my confidence and allowed sufficient self-belief for me to be even more myself and to lead. And you get into a bit of a fellowship, and I think that self-belief that comes from your peers respecting you and coming to you is very, very strong, because that is necessary to go up the ladder. Of course, you do need to look to the senior. You've got to be in an organization which kind of accommodates this, but I was in many organizations that didn't accommodate this. But most companies these days, they really want to make money and be successful. So they're not going to turn you back because you're black. If they've got someone else equally good, you might find it difficult. But I would say you really need to be your best. You don't need to be any better than your best, of course, because that's not really the way it is. But I would say focus on your colleagues as well, not just on the managers and the senior leaders.
Right, excellent. Thank you very much for that. Got another question for Bayowa, and it's, how do you know when to change careers? And if you're looking into pursuing chartership, when should you start pursuing this? If you can please summarize that answer, because we haven't got that much time. Is Bayowa there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. So did you hear the questions?
Yes. How do you know when to change
careers? Yeah, and chartership as well.
When to pursue chartership. Yeah. So I probably will answer the last one prior to the first one. So when to pursue chartership, I would say there is no rush to pursue chartership. I believe is more confidence as well. So I know a lot of young people, they try to achieve chartership maybe within 2 years or 3 years. But with achieving chartership, there is expectations as well. So I believe is once you know I think for every single engineering, there is forms that you have to fill out. There is requirements for it as well. So just look at the requirements for them and make sure that you have the experiences to demonstrate that you have those requirements. So I would say once you've got the experience, once you're confident with it, then you can start looking into chartership. You can start pursuing it, but it doesn't hurt as well. Just as Debbie, I think it was Ruth mentioned, is if that's what you know you want to achieve, once you graduate, you can start looking at those requirements as well, but be confident as well in your abilities and in your experience as well. And how do you know when to change careers? So this might be a little bit difficult for me to answer because I probably would say in terms of sector as well. So just understand what each career entails, understand and how does that fit in line with your purpose, how does that fit in with what you want to achieve in terms of career wise. But I think there is always a strong inner being as well. If it's something that you've been considering for quite a while, just reach out to someone else that possibly is in that field, in that career, and they can give you more insights as to what they do, and therefore you can consider whether it is really what you want to do or not.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm also going to give a shout out to Penny, who's been answering some of the questions in the chat about mentorship and chartership. So please do feel free to look at the chat if you've got any questions relating to those. Final question to Ruth. Two, questions summarized. First being, how did you get into construction? And second being, are you open to being a mentor? Can Ruth hear me?
I was mute, sorry.
Yeah.
So how did I get into constructions? It's a bit by accident. My big sister is a civil engineer, so I fell into it. Well, construction, it was more like a passion. So a lot of people, growing up in Africa, a lot of people have struggled to find a roof over their head. So it's important for me. So my first role was actually to build small houses, comfortable houses, low consumptions, sustainable, bioclimatic, for people with low incomes. So first of all, I was into energy savings, and construction just grabbed me into it.
Right.
And mentoring, yes, I'm also open to mentoring. Okay. Please don't rush into mentoring. Learn to know people. You have to know what you are looking for, and where you want to navigate, because I work in construction and I'm quite outspoken. I'm I study in France. I didn't study in the UK, and I'm still I'm still freaked. People still freaks out a bit when I speak. So learn to know where you want to go and learn to meet different people before settling into a mentor. But of course, I'm open to mentoring.
Excellent. Thank you very much to all our guest speakers for those insightful answers. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. Unfortunately, our time is sort of far spent, so we can't deal with each of them, but please, engage further, by joining our groups, which I'm going to hand over to Abby, and she'll tell you more about our platforms where you can further discuss some of your questions. Thank you. Abby? Abby, if you're on mute, we can't hear you. So in case you're speaking, you have to unmute your mic.
Okay, sorry, because I was sharing my screen, so I couldn't unmute my mic. But yes, thank you so much to all our panelists. It was really, really insightful and amazing. I will be sending out a survey and an email after today's session with information on all our social media handles. We are on LinkedIn and on Instagram, and feel free to connect with any of us in the team and the panelists as well, if you would like to. And if you had questions, pressing questions that you would really like answered, if you join our group, our LinkedIn group, will be more than happy to provide you answers and keep you informed on future events and initiatives. So thanks again. So thanks again for your time, and we really hope that you got a few things from the event today, and we hope to keep you guys informed and add you guys to our community and grow the community. And yes, awesome stuff. So have a good evening, guys, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.